My favorite joke in the entire movie is when the dam breaks in Panama, and there's a guy trying to hold his truck, and he gets blown away by the water, and he just goes, "No me gusta."
I'm so glad you said that.
And then just all the people in the water, you can just hear him, just kind of hear, "No me gusta, no me gusta, no me gusta." That's all they say.
He's floating down the river going, "No me gusta."
It's my favorite joke in the whole movie. No me gusta.
Welcome to the iKnowBadeaux podcast.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the iKnowBadeaux podcast coming at you from the Slice on Oak Studios. I am Mayor Dave Badeaux, the city of Brainerd. With me, as always, is my brother,
Matt Damon.
Well, I wasn't ready for that. Hey, Gabriel Johnson, I see you over there as well.
Yeah, Dave, how's it going?
Excellent. Well, I think what that chime says is it's time to get started. Are you ready?
Let's talk.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Be Kind Rewind 2004 Part 2. Those of you that are joining us for the first time, the Be Kind Rewind is the episodes of the podcast where we go back and we talk about an entire year. In this case, 2004. Part 1, everything pop culture, news, music, television, all that goodness. Killdozers. Go back and watch the Killdozers from 2004. But Part 2 is the movies. However, in this case, we're going to end up with a Part 3 as well, because it turns out 2004 is exactly 20 years ago, which means we got a bunch of movies that are now coming to the 20-year mark, the anniversary, if you will. And it just turns out that this is actually a fantastic year for movies. So we grabbed
Comedies in particular,
and a wide breadth of calamities as well. So we took a handful of them, and we're going to talk about them this episode. And then we're actually going to do a third Be Kind Rewind episode. And I think this is the only time we're going to do this, because I don't want to get in the habit of just kicking it further and further and further. But we're going to take a handful more and come back next week and talk about them as well. So if for some chance something doesn't get talked about this week that you're interested in, toss it over to us, and we'll see if we have time to sneak it in as well. But how do you guys feel about the year 2004 in terms of movies?
great.
A lot of quality content was produced in 2004. And a lot of really bad too.
I think we've got a good smattering of both that we'll talk about today. Just the amount of movies that were made in 2004 was staggering to me. Yeah. I was looking at a list and was somewhere like 180 some movies that were recognizable, right? Like these are all movies that I could at least tell you, yes, I've heard of that movie before. That's crazy. You think about that like now with how everything is streaming and directly to Netflix and stuff. And you're like, yeah, all the different places are trying to make their own stuff. And I get that. But even now, that would seem like a ridiculous amount of movies to make.
Yeah. Nowadays, I think I could name 10.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're all Marvel and Star Wars.
yeah, they're all Marvel. They're all Star Wars. And now part of it, too, is that a lot of it's becoming series. But I was just amazed going through the movies, and more so than not me going, oh God, we've got to talk about that.
Right.
And this happened. This is the reason why we're going to end up with two parts to this second part is just this weekend, we kept expanding the list. Like, how are we not going to talk about that? How do we not talk about that?
Yeah, and I think I said we're probably going to need a part Trey because I can't watch that many movies in 2 days.
I consumed an amazing amount of content. But let's get started right away with the movie that I think is a perfect start for 2004, the movie Napoleon Dynamite.
Yes.
Girls only want boyfriends who have great skills. You know, like nunchuck skills, bow hunting skills, computer hacking skills.
How was school?
Worst day of my life? What do you think? Idiot. kind of bike do you have?
It's a sledgehammer.
Dang. You ever take it off any sweet jumps?
Why are you so sweaty?
I've been practicing some dance moves.
This is a movie that could potentially get made now. Potentially. I think there's a couple on our list that there's no way in hell they're ever getting made in 2024. I think you could potentially make this movie now, but not in the way that it was made. It's crazy that this movie became as big of a hit as it was because there's no swearing in it. Mm-hmm. There's nothing unbelievably raunchy in it, which was for sure the trend at the time.
Right.
Was just gross out weird shit. But it was also a movie that got made, was released at Sundance, and then got picked up and released in theaters. But it was made for only $200,000.
Sure.
Then when it got picked up, they threw another $200,000 at it, doubled the budget to beef it up just a little bit. But that's crazy. Mm-hmm. A movie that $200,000 to make a movie is crazy.
Well, the character was based on a short film they did where they created him. And that was 9 minutes long, and they made it for $500.
Yeah. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So a student film from BYU. These are Mormons, by the way. Mm-hmm. Actual. What do you call them? The Mormons. Yeah. Mormons. Just go with
think
Mormons.
You said it.
Yeah, we'll go with Mormons. It was a BYU project, and $500 in black and white. They put that in Slam Dance, and it did so well that the producer convinced him, hey, you should buckle down and let's actually go make this into a full-length film.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Yeah, thoughts on the whole ordeal?
It was so weird. I think we went to see it just on a whim, like me and my group of friends. Had no idea what it was. I think my buddy Jake really wanted us to go watch it. He must have known something more than we did. And I mean, from the word go, it was just like, what are we watching? And then it just kept getting weirder. Just it's so strangely quotable.
Yes.
And so we saw it like opening weekend. And I think there was like 20 people in the theater.
That's crazy that you actually went to it opening weekend.
And it was like a year and a half later, it had gotten out of theaters and people started watching it and getting it on DVD or whatever. And then it was just everywhere in the high school.
Yep.
It was just all day, every day, people quoting Napoleon Dynamite.
Yeah.
And it was annoying. Like, you guys are a year and a half late. Yeah. We've already done this.
We've been doing that. We lasted 6 weeks. Some of us kept going for 6 months. You are literally a year late on our 6 months. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's crazy. So the initial movie, Palooka, which was the one that Gabe talked about, 2003. So this is a quick turnaround as well from, hey, we made this short film. The guy comes and says, hey, we should, produce it into a big film. Mm-hmm. It gets put into theaters. And I think they did a slow release as well, where it was like a couple theaters, couple more theaters.
Okay.
Yeah, it's crazy that this movie became such a hit on something that is really, really stupid.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of interesting in that it feels like a Mike Judge film.
Sure.
It feels a little bit like a Wes Anderson film. A little bit. Yeah. Not necessarily in the aesthetic, but in the maybe tonality of it.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So 2004 is also the year of Life Aquatic with Steve Isuzu. So
love that movie.
Yeah. So people are starting to kind of feel these things that are coming through.
Yeah.
This is in between Office Space and Idiocracy. But this film, MTV is one of the companies that picked it up.
I couldn't remember, was it MTV or Nickelodeon?
So, it's Paramount, which is both. Yeah, both. But yeah, they put the MTV branding on it. Mm-hmm. So I think that had part to do with it, was people were just seeing this content. They were used to this. They were used to the Beavis and Buttheads, the Daria of the world, like that type of stuff. And so this type of comedy was ripe for this to come out. But it is just really, really bizarre.
It's weird. I didn't get it at first. A friend of the podcast, Justin Goebel, got it on DVD and told me I had to watch it. I watched it with him. I didn't get it. I didn't like it. But, I watched it again a little bit later and say, okay, that's pretty good. It's something new.
Yeah, completely different than anything else.
Absolutely different. So you said like right from the get-go, so that opening sequence with the plates of food and like stuff written in mustard and ketchup and stuff, that was reshot. That was one of the things they paid to get added to the movie. Okay. So the movie just started off before that. So you were just directly directly introduced to Napoleon. So yeah, they kind of work your way in. Great song, I believe, isn't that the White Stripes?
Yeah.
Or at least
be friends.
Yeah. At least Jack White. Really interesting. I read somewhere that Kip was the one that produced the opening credits. I don't know if that's actually true. Huh. So that'd be kind of cool if it was. But yeah, just bizarre. I just rewatched it last night with the kids. So we got the little kids, 4 and 5. And I thought they were going to find this movie hysterical. They did not find this movie hysterical.
They probably don't get it.
They didn't get it at all. They didn't get, and not only that, I have the 5-year-old, or sorry, 6-year-old. The 6-year-old is in the stage where he asks, well, why is he doing that? 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 And in a normal movie, you can explain those things. Why is Napoleon Dynamite doing what he's doing is a very hard thing to explain to a 6-year-old. He got him right away when he threw the action figure out the bus, but it was more so like wait a minute, you can do that? So now I gotta now I'm gonna have to have locks on the windows. But yeah, I was really surprised. The 6-year-old fell asleep. The 4-year-old was just waiting for this movie to get over. I love this movie, but I actually I've now officially have seen it too many times. My watching experience of this last night, I was waiting for it to move along.
Sure.
Yeah. Very, very interesting. Other thoughts on the film itself?
There's a scene where he's like working on a farm.
Yes.
And the guys just starts telling a story.
Yep.
And you can't understand a fucking word he's saying.
Yep.
Something about finding an arrowhead or something.
Found some arrowheads down in the creek.
Over there, that creek, man, I found a couple of soaps on the arrowhead.
That scene, they just put the camera on this guy and just let him yap. Like it wasn't in the script at all.
It was just a local?
It was just some local weirdo farmer just yapping away about it. He was one time arrowhead. Yeah, they just hit record and let him go.
So he didn't know the camera was on. Yeah. They were just recording him.
I don't understand a word you just said.
So this is filmed in the guy's hometown. I think it's Jared Hess, I believe is the director's name.
Sounds right.
It was him and his wife that wrote it, and he directed it. This is just his hometown. And so there's a bunch of extras and stuff that are just regular old people. And that is a great example of this dude had no idea what was even going on.
Hey, Lyle.
I actually like the part where he shoots the cow more. So there's a scene where he's going to go shoot the cow, and then the school bus pulls up. So that is an actual true story that happened in one of the writers' lives. I don't remember if it was the director or not, but that exact thing happened to him. He was waiting for the bus pulled up, the farmer shoots the cow, and all the kids on the bus scream. But my favorite part is the guy goes to shoot the gun, and he goes to click it, and it doesn't go. And in a very Mike Judge type of thing, he's like, well, usually it works really well. Just mumbles to himself.
Nothing on there works smooth.
Fun fact, the cow was an extra from a farmer nearby. The cow was not on set when it needed to be on set. So in order to get a cow in time before the sun set so they could actually get the shot, they had to just pick up the phone. And the guy says, in this little town, you only got to change the last 3 numbers of people's phone numbers because everybody has the exact same phone number essentially. So he just picked up the phone and started calling numbers to see
the next number up, next number.
Do you have a cow?
Up. And he said the first guy that picked up was really cranky with them until he said, "We're with the movie." And of course, the guy immediately changes his tone, and they had a cow within 20 minutes. So just picked up the phone. "Hey, you got a cow. We're with the movie. Abso-fucking-lutely, I have a cow." And they had a cow in 20 minutes.
Surprised I didn't know that.
Yeah, so very, very interesting. My favorite fun fact about the movie is about the three main actors. Mm-hmm. So Deb is played by Tina Majorino, which you may recognize from the movie Waterworld.
Yes.
As the little girl from Waterworld. But the other two actors, Jon Heder, who plays...
It's like $1 an hour.
Napoleon. And Efron Ramirez, who plays Pedro.
Mm-hmm. Vote for Pedro.
So Jon Heder was in the first film that they made for $500. That's how he gets the role. Turns out he has a twin brother.
Oh.
So there are two Napoleon Dynamites walking around. Yeah. But fun fact, Efron Ramirez also has a twin brother.
Nice.
So there are two Pedros and two Napoleon Dynamites out there walking around. So much so that at some point during the success, Efron says to his brother, "Hey, I can't make it to some of these things. Will you just show up as me?"
Yeah.
Oh.
And then his brother sees dollar signs and takes it upon himself to just start going to things.
Appearances. That's smart.
And the actor that plays Pedro had to send his own brother a cease and desist saying, "Hey, stop showing up as things as me."
That's awesome.
That is really awesome.
I think this matches your season, Pedro.
Thank you.
The other cool things about the movie, Jason Lee was actually asked to play Uncle Rico and turned it down, which would have made that role very, very different.
Very different.
Very different. And also the steak throwing scene in the film where he hits him in the face. Yeah. So typically when you've got something being thrown from off screen, you just have an extra, or, not an extra, but you have one of the production crew throw, turns out that Uncle Rico used to be a minor league baseball player. So he says, "I would like to throw the steak," and hits him so hard in the face that he bruises his nose.
No. But he throws it so awkwardly.
He does. Well, he throws it awkwardly as the character,
right.
But then from off screen.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
And
gotcha.
It's really funny when you go back and watch like behind the scenes stuff with this, or like people recalling things, and that's the part of this that I love the most. I love going back and I'm going to watch the movie and then I'm going to go consume as much stuff as humanly possible. Mm-hmm. Part of why I like this era is the DVDs. I love the behind the scenes content.
Yes.
I love that during this era, they're producing that stuff because they know they need a reason for you to buy the DVD.
Right. It's time to get back to that.
It is time. You want to sell me a service? I want a service where give me all the content that was on the DVD.
Yeah.
Give me all that content. That's the service I want.
If I rent your movie, Amazon Prime, give me the commentary, give me the behind the scenes, give me all that shit.
Buy it. Okay. I'll rent it without that. I'll buy it with that.
Yeah.
How about that? How about that's the differentiating point? Mm-hmm. So there's tons of stuff out there with all this stuff with the behind the scenes filming and stuff. So I actually saw the director is in a thing where he says that he tried throwing the steak like multiple times and couldn't get it. And then, Uncle Rico's like, "I can do it," and got him on the first shot. But then you can go back and you can watch the shot. So don't tell stories. Don't tell stories. Because I can watch the guy miss 4 times. I've seen the footage. I watched the one thing. I was like, "Oh, that's a great story." And then I watched back and no, he fucking misses 4 times. Had a bigger steak, had a smaller steak, still missed, hit him in the arm. So that type of shit was funny how, and we probably are guilty of this as well in this podcast, is we'll hear a story from the words of, the director said this is what happened. Mm-hmm.
But if it sounds good, we'll repeat it as fact.
Oh, absolutely.
It sounds good.
It sounds fantastic. But yeah, it's interesting that you can get to those points where, no, it's completely bullshit story. Mm-hmm. But still funny that he threw the steak at him.
Yes.
Watch this. the heck are you doing?
That's what I'm talking about.
Last thoughts on Napoleon Dynamite.
Well, just like the stake throwing scene and the grandma going straight off the dunes, just disappears off screen, and the Rex Kwando slapping stuff. Like it's so slapstick and weird, but it's just so hard to explain. Like what is the humor of the movie?
Yeah,
it's just absurd. It's the absurdities.
It's a character movie, right? Like Napoleon Dynamite is a character. Mm-hmm. He actually barely changes throughout the entire film, right?
He's not better off at the end.
No.
Still Napoleon.
So there's a lot of people that don't go there's no plot to it, but it really is like a hero's journey as well. There is a progression, and it's the other characters around him that progress, and he's the character helping them along as they go. It's interesting. It's bits. Right? Yeah. It's very much like hearing how they wrote it. They're like, these are stories that happened to us when we were growing up. It's like, okay, then you just kind of put them together like skits in SNL. But that's why it worked, because much like SNL, kids on the playground, kids at school, as adults in college or whatever, you're just regurgitating those funny things where it's like, God, can you believe that he said, Tina, come eat your dinner? Mm-hmm. Tina, you fat lard, come eat your dinner. Like, that's fucking hilarious, right? You could have just fed a llama instead. Tina, you fat lard, come get your dinner. It's fucking hilarious. Tots.
Yeah.
You need those tots?
Give me some of your tots. My wife says that a lot. My wife loves that line.
Maybe my favorite character in the film that should have had more of an arc is his moon boots. The one thing they missed is the moon boots. Turns out there was only one pair of moon boots. And so as the film goes on, they are getting more and more decrepit because they didn't have another pair to actually replace them with.
Okay.
And so there's a couple shots where you can actually see where they've had to patch them back up and like put Sharpie over them to try and make sure that you can't tell that these boots are completely falling apart. But yeah, fun stuff.
Yeah. The little dance he does at the end of the movie, you could turn the volume down and play any song.
Really?
And it goes with it. The dance moves line up with the beat at some point. There's just so many moves to it that it's a good time.
Yeah, in terms of
we used to do that. We used to just get really high and just play different songs, and it would hit like the lyrics would hit with the dance move he was doing, and just laugh our asses off.
In terms of budget, the Jamiroquai song is a huge part of the budget. Like that ended up being a huge part of the cost of the film, and they shot it 3 times. There are 3 different attempts at it, and then just spliced it together. So yeah, it didn't matter what the song was. It's not like they were like, this one's Jamiroquai, let's go.
Right. Yeah. It could be literally any song.
Yeah. My final take on it is I've probably reached the tail end of my Napoleon Dynamite consumption.
Yeah, probably about a decade.
Yep. But still funny, still laughed at multiple parts in that film. And it's like the time machine, right? So a funny bit, right? He's on the time machine, it's zapping his nuts, and he goes, it doesn't work, piece of crap. And then Uncle Rico comes out and goes, I could have told you that. That's hilarious. That's hilarious. He also has his electrified junk. That's hilarious. So there's lasting bits to it, and honestly, iconic in terms of the way that films are. So hats off to that.
Stay home and eat all the freaking chips, Kip.
Napoleon, don't be jealous that I've been chatting online with babes all day.
Okay, next on the list is something that Gabe added. This is a stretch. I'm going to say this is a stretch because we're 2004. This is a film that came out in 2002, but then was released on DVD in 2004 because it was coinciding with a TV show that was making its wrap as well. And that is...
Ollie G Indahouse. So it didn't have a theatrical release in North America.
And
so the DVD release was its North American premiere in 2004.
In 2004.
So Sacha Baron Cohen had Ollie G, the Ollie G show first. That was it, a British show, and then HBO picked it up in 2002, 2003-ish. And it was cool.
Yep.
Right? He had his Ollie G character. He had Borat.
Yep.
He had Bruno. And he ended up making movies of all three of them. Ollie G was the first one. Low budget.
Yep.
Watched it this morning. Not all that good.
Not all that good. Might be the understatement of the entire decade.
But it was good enough. It made money.
Mm-hmm.
It was good enough to get him funded for Borat, for Bruno,
Yep.
for The Dictator. And,
Oh, yeah.
you know, he made some really good films after this.
So this is something that's interesting about doing the Be Kind Rewind is this is a moment in time that then defines where comedy goes in his world for the next decade, right? A Dictator is probably 2010. Got to be
that
right?
old?
It's got to be right. Oh, you think it's newer than that?
No, I'd say like 2014.
Okay, well that could be. Let's look it up. That's
Maybe
crazy.
even 2017.
No, Dictator. No, I think you're thinking of the Seth Rogen one, 2012.
Okay.
We'll split the difference. Okay. Still though, that's another 8 years later from the release of this DVD. And that's not to mention Borat coming in and being a iconic, disruption of filmmaking. I watched 5 minutes of this morning. I prepared my morning. I got my coffee. I usually take about, half hour, 45 minutes to just consume some kind of television. I decide, let's throw on Ollie G.
Good choice.
Yeah.
I got 5 minutes into it, Gabe. I couldn't do it. This takes all the things I love about Ollie G and removes them and makes it an actual movie about a character that is not a likable character at all.
Right. This is unlike the TV show or even his other movies that are kind of mockumentary style.
Yes.
This is a movie about Ollie G.
Yes.
So he's actually acting out a script instead of where the show is just him kind of ad-libbing as this character?
Yes.
Okay.
So the things that make Sacha Baron Cohen awesome are not a part of this film.
Not totally removed.
Okay, I said I didn't get far enough into it to know if maybe there are some good jokes or some good bits in it. I got as far as he is clearly in a dream, right, to start off the film.
Mm-hmm.
So then when the dream gets over, I thought, oh, this is when we'll get into what I'm used to. This is going to be, him doing awkward things with people and interviewing them and doing all the stuff you think of.
No, he just has his dog lick his balls.
Comedy.
He wakes up to the dog licking his balls, which is... It's peak 2004.
Mm-hmm.
Of all these movies I've watched, there's a bunch of people waking up to having their face licked, having all this different stuff going on. It's always an animal or a friend or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
You knew what was going to happen, right? That's his dog. His dog is licking his balls. He doesn't stop the dog from licking his balls. He doesn't stop the dog.
Not even when his grandma comes into the room.
Sounds hilarious.
It was the laziest attempt at comedy, and I was like, I'm out. I'm sorry, I'm out. And that was
his grandma even says, you're not supposed to do that when I'm in the room.
Yes. His grandma thinks he's masturbating because his dog is biting his balls and he's trying to get the dog off his balls. Jesus Christ. But the show Ollie G, I did go watch a bunch more of those clips. That stuff is, that is comedy that I love.
Mm-hmm.
The awkward people kind of getting an inkling that what's going on, but not really 100%.
They think they're coming into a serious interview.
Yes.
And then kind of as the interview goes on, they're like, wait a second.
What is going on?
Yeah.
And I find that really enjoyable because there's almost a reveal to it as well. I found a Donald Trump clip as well. It lasts a minute and 30 seconds.
With Ollie G?
With Ollie G. Oh. Trump was onto it from word go and was like, I'm out of here. You guys have a good one. Yep. It was so fast. And it was polite about it, but it was actually really funny because it was like, oh, I bet this is going to be kind of spicy. And like immediately Trump is like, no, I'm a minute and a half is all he lasted. And even that was like him being polite. Like, I'm going to get out of here. But funny. And Sacha Baron Cohen going into Borat and Bruno, I mean, those become outrageous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are hundreds of millions in box office. Those are big movies.
Borat specifically, I remember sitting in a packed theater for that in the scene where his fat friend is running through naked and then ends up on his face with his balls hanging out. And I remember being in a packed theater watching that. And it was maybe the most uncomfortable I've ever been in my life. Like, this is everyone in this theater, 200 people or whatever it was, because theaters were huge at that point too, is literally squirming watching a fat old man's taint gigantic on the screen.
Great success.
Okay, final thoughts on Ollie G.
I think I've seen 1 or 2 clips of the show. When I sent you guys where he's on the farm talking with this guy and he can't figure out the difference between veterinarians and veterans. That's why were there so many veterinarians in Vietnam or whatever? It's just the defeat on that guy's face when he just cannot get through to him is you could chew it.
I think the funniest part of that concept is in this instance, in that he's on the farm with this guy. And clearly, you get there and you set up and you've got all the cameras and the cameras are rolling. And this guy figures out, I don't want to be involved in this anymore, and is trapped.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. There's nothing he can do. All he can do is just put his head down and shake his head.
The shame of it all.
The clip I saw today, they were talking about Homo sapiens, and he starts going, I'm not a homo. And then it's just 4 people trying to explain to him that we're all Homo sapiens.
I'm gonna have to watch that one.
So his humor is hilarious. That film itself is The Pest meets Corky Romano.
Okay.
With a character that I want nothing to do with.
Yeah, the Ollie G show is amazing.
Yeah.
Legendary. The movie missed. The movie missed.
The movie missed. Including so much as that right at the beginning, there's a bunch of gangsters shooting at him, and it leaves an imprint of him because they also missed. But it leaves a giant cock behind him as well. that I would say Ollie G missed in a giant cock proportion.
Oh, Tupac, no. Whatever.
Okay, moving on in our list for this week, we have the movie Team America.
Yes.
World crime is at an all-time high. And the only thing standing between order and chaos is us.
Hey, terrorists! Terrorize this!
I think we've been waiting for this one for at least 6 months. I continue to play the Team America soundtrack in the background because Gabe, once again, wearing the American bandana.
America.
Let's talk Team America.
Friend of the cast, Mr. Eric Hookreed.
Yes.
My first experience with this show, we were in TV productions class together, and he pulled up a video of the opening scene.
Yes.
The fight scene. When the puppets, when it's all serious, and then the puppets just crash into each other, and it's so stupid.
Yes.
I thought it was the dumbest thing I'd ever seen.
Oh, really?
Oh, wow.
Just seeing that clip on its own, I was like, no, I am not on board with this.
Okay. So I am in a completely different world than you are. I am at this point really into South Park because it is hitting, I think it's stride by this point in the show itself. They've done the South Park movie, which I am a gigantic fan of. It is, I think, one of the best musicals in the history of time.
Yeah, Robin Williams to sing their song at the Oscars or something.
Yeah, they were up for an Oscar. Yeah.
Basketball had recently come out.
Basketball.
I was excited for this movie because Matt Parker and Trey Stone were going to do something fun.
And they don't miss. They just don't miss.
Right. And I knew it was going to be funny, but just the way that scene was set up, was presented to me, I was like, I'm not so sure about that.
So that's the thing that I love about the movie is that's pretty quick into the movie.
Right.
But the way they set you up as a viewer of the film, the very first shot is of a puppet dancing around with a really shitty crayon-drawn background to it. And so they then zoom out and you realize that there's a puppet controlling the puppet.
Yeah.
So the very first shot of the film prepares you for the joke they're setting up in 3 minutes.
Right.
Which is, these are puppets. But
we can't really make them do a cool fight scene.
Can't really make them do a cool fight scene. But when they pull the camera back and they show like the expansiveness of the world,
right.
My enjoyment out of it is people had to make
that's
that.
A lot of work.
That's a lot of
work
for one scene.
Mm-hmm.
Like they pull the camera back and you're like, my God, dude, the detail that is happening in this scene, and it's Jerry Bruckheimer. It's not Jerry Bruckheimer, but it's Jerry Bruckheimer. That's what they were theming this off of, the Top Guns and, all of the wonderful, I mean, even at this point, we've had Pirates of the Caribbean even by this point, but all of the Jerry Bruckheimer shows that you've been used to, the films that you've been used to, that format, it's prevalent immediately. Mm-hmm. So this is right up my alley immediately. So when that happens on screen and they started fighting like that, I fucking died.
Yeah.
I died because I was like, of course that's what, it's like them telling you, like, we're limited by puppets. We pull back. You're like, holy shit, maybe we're not limited by puppets.
Right.
And then we're fucking limited by puppets.
Oh yeah, no, still puppets. still puppets. So in the full context of the scene, when I saw the full scene, I was laughing my ass off. But my very first introduction to the movie of just that on its own, the fight scene was like, I'm not so sure. but in the whole scene concept, it works, and it continues to work for the rest of the movie.
Amazingly so. I mean, it's not a long movie. This was also during a time frame when movies just weren't as long as they are now. Like this is, I think, hour and 37 minutes, I think. Okay. I want to say Napoleon Dynamite is like an hour and 22 minutes, which is short as all hell. But yeah, this is a $30 million budget. It didn't do fantastic in the box office. It made its money back, then made some money overseas. But then I'm assuming it crushed on DVD because that was also, I remember the DVD coming out as well because this was the time when they were also doing the unrated versions.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
So do you remember the unrated version of this?
Yes.
Okay.
In particularly the sex scene.
The sex scene. So in the film itself, the puppets, it's hilarious how they do all their little gags with them, and then you get to the sex scene, and in the context of the film, you're like, of course, there's a sex scene with puppets, and it's pretty raunchy, right? It's like there's puppet titties, and they're doing some crazy moves. We were at my brother's house. Were you there for it? Were you at Rick's house when this came out? Yeah. So we all sat down to watch the unrated version of Team America, and none of us were prepared for the unrated version of
I
the
don't
sex
think I've
scene.
seen that.
Let's just say he shits in her mouth. let's just say it.
Is it in her mouth? It was just on her chest.
Okay, maybe it's on her
she
chest.
shits on him.
Maybe she shits on him. I don't know. A puppet shits during the sex scene. And it was like one of those things where you're just like, of course that happens.
You're like, whoa.
Yeah. Yeah, you took it to the ultimate level. But even in the context of what's happening in the movie, even in the theatrical release, it's very violent. The guns that they shoot, it's part of the humor of it is, America is here to save the fucking day.
Yes,
we think
we are. Yeah. And in the meantime, literally blowing up everything in everywhere we go. And I thought that was the interesting thing. I heard you listening to something right before we started where they were talking about the creation of the set pieces that they go to around the world.
Yeah, they if you can zoom in the background and stuff, you'll see one like a lamp is just a cheese grater. with like 2 other parts on the other side. The palm trees, the leaves on them are made out of torn up dollar bills. I think they use like old Chinese takeout at one point for like houses in the background.
Yeah. And it's specific to the places they go in the world are made to look the way that Americans think.
Right.
That those places look.
Yeah, it's not supposed to be accurate.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be what Americans think it looks like. And one of my favorite things that they do in the movie is anytime they do the Roland Emmerich location at the bottom, but it's always like 6,724.3 miles from America. It's always where these places are in relation to America.
Yeah, even so much as the very first scene in Paris, it's all of the icons you would know of from Paris, so much so that the Eiffel Tower falls over on the arch.
Yeah.
It's all just right there.
Yeah, it's just all the things that you know about this place. We're just put them all right here.
And then, of course, everything gets blown up by the Americans. So great commentary on just the way, especially at that time, coming off of 9/11 and then the years with the Iraqi war, the way that we view ourselves and the way that the rest of the world probably views us. Best things in the movie, I got 2 of them. One is when they do the plastic surgery to make the puppet.
The reveal.
The best bit of the whole thing. Also, to go along with that, the just the language that he speaks whenever the
oh god, everybody, the language, it's just gibberish. Actually, I think in the subtitles it actually says at one point that he goes into the little Star Wars cantina of the Arab world, and on the subtitles for the band singing, it just says Arabic gibberish.
Durka Durka, Muhammad Jihad, Haka Sherpa Sherpa, Bakala. Oh, Durka Durka Durka.
But the best thing of the whole entire movie?
Matt Damon.
Matt Damon.
So I don't know how much we can actually reveal to the thought process behind the Matt Damon character. Just because, again, this is 2004.
Yes.
They get it started.
Yeah.
There are some words that aren't around as much anymore.
They're just getting, this is right at the end of it. We've already disclosed this with Let's Get It Started. But yeah, the Matt Damon character, his model comes out of the kiln.
Yeah,
or the
I think they
oven
actually
or
called it
whatever.
an oven. He just comes out of the oven looking kind of dumb.
And so then they basically were just making fun of the puppet.
Right. Yeah. So instead of, I'm sure they had lines written for him.
Oh, yeah.
But instead
They just
no.
changed it, threw it all out.
All out the window. It's Matt Damon.
Yeah, Matt Damon's quotes on it as well are freaking hilarious, honestly.
Yeah. And speaking of just the language that other people say, my favorite joke in the entire movie is when the dam breaks in Panama. And there's a guy trying to hold his truck, and he gets blown away by the water, and he just goes, "No me gusta."
I'm so glad you said that.
And then just all the people in the water, you could just hear him, just kind of hear, "No me gusta, no me gusta, no me gusta." That's all they say.
He's floating down the river going, "No me gusta."
That's my favorite joke in the whole movie. No me gusta. I say that a lot.
Speaking of foul language, my favorite quick line in the whole film is there's the chase scene with the cars in the desert, and he whips it around and is charging back at the bad guys, and he drops a ramp for them to fly over top of him, and he just says,
"Surprise, cockbags!"
Yeah. Yeah, just out of nowhere.
I don't even know if that's a bad word. Like when if you combine everything together, is it even really? I'm sure we'll still get demonetized for all that nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
This movie has some of my favorite songs in films as well.
Yes.
This is right up there with the South Park film in terms of the soundtrack. AIDS is fucking hilarious. So they go to, what do they call it? Lease or something like that. I can't remember. It's Rent, but they call it something else. And the actors are just singing AIDS.
Everyone has AIDS.
AIDS, 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 AIDS. How can you not watch that and just immediately fall on the ground?
Wow.
There's that one. And then the part that I started clapping, I said that there are 2 films in my life that I remember standing up and applauding. And this was the second film. When it finished, I stood up and applauded this film because I was like, this is amazing. A part of it was the song playing at the end, because that's the first time you hear the full version of the Team America song. And I stood up and I was like, this is fucking amazing. But there's another part in the film, they play the montage song.
Yes.
And so my viewing of South Park I had already heard that song. It is in the episode where they go to Aspen. I think it's called Aspen Extreme maybe. But they go to Aspen for a timeshare and it does the Save the Rec Center bit from ski movies.
Okay.
And you know this, one of my favorite genres is Save the Rec Center, specifically ski movies.
Yes.
The Ollie G movie?
Yes.
He saves the rec center.
Oh, okay. I'm in. If I can make it past the first 5 minutes, I'm in. So and that montage bit is actually from the show, but it's so good. And I was so happy when it got reused in this because it's like, it's perfect for this. It needs to be. And I had actually said to somebody, I go, oh, if they play the montage song, and then they did, and I immediately started applauding. I was like, no one else understands why this needed to happen, but for me, in this moment, I was all for it. So
yeah. I had forgotten about one of the songs in particular. Just the opening line is, I miss you more than Michael Bay missed the mark when he made Pearl Harbor.
Ben Affleck sucks. Just a little more than I miss you.
Ben Affleck sucks. Just a little more than I miss you.
It's so good.
I had completely forgotten about that song.
It's so
like,
good.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. The other thing I want to just add real quick before we get out of this. Oh, the Bummer remix also.
Yes.
So they have the Team America theme, and then they actually on the soundtrack, it's called the Team America theme Bummer remix.
Bummer remix.
So when it's the fan and they're all sad.
Yeah. That's what when we watch football and there's ever an injury timeout and they play the slow version of the theme song. I always refer to it as the Bummer remix.
The Bummer remix, yeah. As well as the Freedom Costa Buck 05.
Yes.
So, and then lastly, I just wanted to say super fast, I love the Lamborghini limo that turns into their jet. That's like the first time you're like, okay, you know, we're going to get silly with this a little bit, but at the same time, I mean, we're already pretty silly, but the other thing I wanted to note is that this has the feeling of Thunderbirds, maybe? Thunderbirds.
I think I remember Matt saying something about that.
Yeah, so there's a TV show, or there's a bunch of TV shows like this, more so in Europe than here. I think more so in like England.
Okay.
But these puppet, special teams, puppet shows were a big thing.
Huh.
And they were meant to be slightly serious. Like it was, it wasn't like, slapsticky comedy. It was meant to be kind of a cheap way of making a television show that was supposed to be slightly serious. And they're weird.
Huh.
It's a weird thing that exists. And there's a lot of them. But Thunderbirds was the one. And in 2004, they actually made a live action movie of it as well. So the same time that they're trying to do.
Weird.
Yeah, it didn't go anywhere. So, all right. Final thoughts on Team America.
The dicks, pussies, assholes bit.
Man.
I use that regularly. If somebody calls me an asshole, I prefer dick.
And that's, I mean, it's almost 5 minutes long. That whole bit. I mean, it isn't, but it's not a 30-second monologue, if you will. It's great. There's so much from this. I think they reused that at some point as well.
We are gonna have our dicks and our pussies all covered in shit.
Okay, Scott, final thoughts. Team America.
It's one of the funniest movies ever made. And, we've been talking about the things that are said and the jokes and whatever, completely glossing over just the constraints, like artificial constraints to, what do they call it? Necessity is the mother of invention.
Yep.
So just the fact that they made this movie have to be done with puppets and the jokes that come out of that on its own. The puking for 5 minutes. Every time he throws up, the music swells triumphantly. He's like, whoa! Or just the way they walk. Yeah. It's like, I don't know. It's
they do a walk that, follow me or walk this way bit. But I do like that it isn't, the comedy isn't just based off of it being puppets. Like, that's not what all the comedy is.
Right.
Which makes it so, they're taking it serious in the way that they would take something serious, right? This is a Jerry Bruckheimer style film, the way that they would make it. So it's a parody.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And it is a fantastic parody.
Yeah, but just the way they did it, there's some jokes that can only be told because they're making the movie the way they're making it. And I like that.
Yeah, I love it as well.
Matt Damon.
All right, last one, folks, and then we're going to go ahead and get out of here before the next week's edition. For next week, we are going to talk about Harold and Kumar.
Okay.
Go to White Castle. Dodgeball. Anchorman.
Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah. So just comedy.
2004.
Yeah. I'm telling you, that's the problem. That's why we have to, and all these films are 20 years old now. So we can't do a disservice and not talk about these. But I'm also going to throw out there as well that we will most certainly be talking about Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Okay.
Because that is a top 3 film for me, and there's no way I'm not talking about that. So, but if you've got something you want us to talk about, shoot that over to us as well. Because right now, this is a film that we would not have talked about. I probably would not have talked about this film, but top fan, super fan, Corey Eugene Kuhn, throw a shout out back to him. He actually commented on our last post saying that, thank you for the shout out. I was just telling me lady about it. So now we're going to give a shout out to your lady.
Oh, it's a lady.
But Corey threw out to us
Sin Rumbo.
Without a paddle.
What?
Let's talk about it real quick because Gabe Johnson, you just watched it, but you watched
the Spanish version.
Yes.
That's the only free version I could find. I wasn't going to drop $4. And I committed. I watched the whole damn movie. I don't speak a lick of Spanish. I couldn't even get English subtitles on it.
No, are you serious?
So I know nothing's going on until they get to the clubhouse or wherever it is after the funeral or whatever. It's El D.B. Cooper. And they're looking at a map. So I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, they're going to go find D.B. Cooper's treasure.
All right, so this might be my favorite thing that has happened in the podcast history. We are going to talk about the movie Without a Paddle. One of us has only consumed the Spanish version of this movie. I think we might make this a regular thing. I think we should do a whole show where we have 3 different movies and one of us only watches the Spanish version of each of those movies. So let's talk about it. This is a film that I remember from 2004. I remember thinking it's a reasonable comedy. It is starring 3 members that I find pretty enjoyable in Seth Green, Matthew Lillard, and Dax Shepard.
Dax
Shepard?
Dax
Shepard.
Yeah, and all 3 of them are great as like the number 4 character in a movie.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But all 3 being number 1. One's A, B, and C. Yeah.
So as I was watching, and for a very short amount of time, Ollie G, I had sent a text saying, this is dog shit. Scott starts watching Without a Paddle and immediately starts talking about Without a Paddle.
It's just they're not great actors.
Supernatural.
So I had to really settle into that.
Into the film itself?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it opens up and it's cool. It opens up with shots of them, of kids growing up.
Yep.
You know, and, you know, these kids have been friends forever, and where's it going to go? And then it shows them graduating high school, and it's them at their actual ages.
Yep.
I think Matthew Lillard was 34 when this movie was filmed.
Yep.
So that I was like, oh, you're not even close. Like Seth Green looks like he's got like 35-year-old stubble. And then they started acting, and I was like, oh yeah, none of these guys are great actors.
Yeah. So again, one of the things I love to do when we do these is just try to consume as much content as I can. I watched the film, and then I went online and tried to find everything I could find. And I was happy because it was like, okay, this is the 20-year anniversary. There's going to be, these guys are going to be talking about this stuff.
Yeah, there was like an hour-long podcast.
Yeah,
of those three guys talking about it. I didn't get to watch it, but
they just did a podcast
3 weeks ago.
Yep. And so I consumed about half of it, maybe a little bit over half of it. But I was really excited to hear them talk about it because they're very open about the fact that this movie is not great. And I like that. I like the getting to, 20 years later and looking back on your career. I'm actually really enjoying consuming content from that time frame with our own, feelings and thoughts of like where we were when we watched it. But then to hear these actors who now, or these musicians, like we talked about Justin Timberlake, same thing. Like you get to a point where like you're not the hot thing anymore. Matthew Lillard was in a ton of movies forever and still is in plenty of stuff, but it's a different world, right? Now they're settling into what the next phase of their career will be, and looking back and watching some of the stuff with their kids and like looking back fondly on it, but then also kind of remembering where they were in that moment. So it's really cool to be able to do that with something like this, with a film that arguably is not great. I will say though, I enjoyed it.
It's fine.
I thought it was a pretty enjoyable experience to go back and watch this movie.
It was action packed.
Didn't say it was
the dialogue was snippy. I'm sorry, El Snippy.
Yeah, I don't know what anybody said, but I mean, it was bear attacks into pot farms, into tree fairies, into all kinds of boom, boom, boom.
So that was the one thing that they just talked about was this is a film that doesn't get made now. There's no way. The buddy comedy on I think this was a $20 million budget, maybe a $30 million budget.
Okay.
You're not making a $20 million buddy comedy now. It's just not happening. Yeah. But it is set pieces. And that, I when I was listening to their podcast about it, they used that same term, and I was like, that's exactly what I was going to say about this. I like set pieces. I like, yes, it's formulaic, and yes, you know exactly where this is going at all times.
It is they hit the beats. Watching it, I thought to myself, I'm pretty sure you and I have written this movie.
We have written this movie. We have definitely written this movie.
We have a script somewhere that hits exactly all of the same beats.
It is formulaic. It is a journey road trip film, even though the road trip is the river, right? So it's interesting that this film doesn't really get going until they hit the river. But I found it really fascinating to find out that initially, and this is one of the things that they said about this was, so when they got out of the premiere, they went out to go have a cigarette.
Can I say what you said when we walked out of that screening?
Well, Dax and I, like before the credits went down, I was like, let's smoke outside right this second. And we walked outside on the Warner Brothers lot, and we like turned the corner and just put our arms around each other and just sort of laughed.
Call the police because there's gonna be a bomb at the box office.
About their own movie.
About their own movie. So they were not even aware of what this film was going to turn into. They thought they were making and this is their words, not mine, kind of a new age version of the movie Diner, only set in the woods. So they thought they were making this a little heavier start to the film, the buddy part of it with their friend. The initial script had them getting the box with their stuff in it from their friend's mom at the funeral. So there was a little.
Was it their friend that died?
Yes.
Oh.
Oh man!
I knew it was a funeral, and then they all quit their jobs as doctors and went in the woods.
Went in the woods. We had no idea. I thought it was a bear. But yeah, there was a little bit more heaviness to it, and they thought that they were like this was a coming of age type of like we got to go do this for our friend, which it is. But it's a lot different when they go into the treehouse and find the treasure chest than when like the mom almost gives them the hey, you got to go do this. But the movie, once the movie gets started, it's very formulaic, but it is enjoyable. I thought it was an enjoyable process to go through.
Yeah, I liked it. I'll watch it again.
Yeah.
Some of the river scenes are like, Jesus Christ. Are you guys actually doing that?
They were.
And yeah. Matthew Lillard said in an interview that his stunt double at one point, because it's like a level 5 or whatever rapids. And you can take a raft down that, or you could take a kayak down that and be pretty okay. But trying to do it in this canoe that they had.
Flat bottom canoe.
Yeah. So this stuntman who was like an expert, a rafter guy, ended up crashing into the rocks and broke his orbital bone and lost 3 teeth and like... It was serious stuff. They were doing it.
So
the stunt double was doing it anyways.
Humans were doing it.
Yeah.
So they would actually open a dam upstream and let all this water come down. And so that's how they were creating the rapids that they were creating. And yeah, they had to airlift that guy out of the area, and he was in the hospital for quite some time with those injuries, and that's their stunt double. And then they say to these guys, we're not going to have you in the raft or in the canoe, but we need some shots of you having fallen out. So they had to jump into the same rapids and get filmed getting swept down.
They just saw a guy almost dying.
Yeah.
Getting swept down the stream. And sure as shit.
Do you think when he got swept downstream, he screamed, "No me gusta"?
I don't know, Gabe, did he?
Yes,
yes, he did. Seth Green actually gets sucked under and disappears. And what they had told him was if that happens, let it take you because it'll kick you out at some point. And he ended up 300 feet downstream.
300 feet?
300 feet, according to according to the people that were there, Dax Shepard, 300 feet down the stream, actually made it through one of the safety nets that was down there. Yeah. So yeah, and he pops up 300 feet down the stream. And it's like, yeah, that's no me gusta. No me gusta. I actually really enjoyed this film. I don't think it is a great film by any stretch of the means. I think it is perfect for 2004.
It's a great period piece. That's where comedies were at.
Yep. Yeah, not too overly raunchy, though. I was surprised by that. It didn't have a ton of the gross out stuff. There's some poop.
Yeah, and really not a lot of sex.
No.
I mean, in the end, was it Seth ended up in bed with one of the tree fairy girls?
Yep.
But yeah.
Yeah, and it didn't do the Where Are They Now? I mean, it kind of did, but it was like a Where Are They Now 2 weeks later. It didn't do
what they spend the money on, basically.
Yeah. DB Cooper is a great MacGuffin, if you will. So that was fun. Burt Reynolds
was great. I loved Burt Reynolds in the movie. When he says something to Matthew Lillard's character, like, God, I can't remember at
Gabe,
all
what did he
says.
say?
Yeah.
Surprise, cockbag!
he just gives this short little speech about like loss or something and whatever, and he goes, "You know what I mean?" And Matthew Lillard goes, "Yeah, I think I know what you mean." And he goes, "Oh yeah? Did any of that stuff happen to you?" And he goes, "Well, no." And he goes, "Then how could you possibly know what I mean?"
Yeah.
So what was Burt Reynolds' character?
He was DB Cooper's friend.
Okay.
And so he's been
amigo.
Yes,
amigo. His amigo.
Yes. So he's been out there searching for his friend for 30 years or whatever it has been. But yeah, great role for Burt Reynolds. This was one of his first roles back into acting. He had kind of not been around for a little bit. So I think that was one of the fun things to hear them talk about was like having a mega movie star at that point in their career on set with you, you know, in that dynamic of them, you know, a couple times maybe being out of line with some of the crew, you know, not really a dick, but kind of a, do you know what I've, my process type of thing, type of guy. He's like, I am an actor. It's coming from Burt fucking Reynolds. Yeah. Seems really bizarre. But I love Burt Reynolds. My favorite part of the film, Bart the Bear. So Bart the Bear is a real goddamn bear that they had on set. And listening to them talk about their interactions with this bear is fantastic because these are wild animals.
Yes.
They're bears.
They're bears, right? But what they do with it is they bring it on set and then they give you the list of rules. Don't look the bear in the eyes. Don't run from the bear. You know, if you're scared, the bear can tell. But confirmation. One of the rules with the bear is if you are menstruating, you may not be on the set.
Oh,
they can smell it.
Confirmation. The rule for the bear, if you are menstruating, you may not be on set.
Was the handler Dwight?
No.
From The Office?
No.
Bears beats Battlestar Galactica.
But Bart the Bear is a character, obviously, in the film that kind of follows them along a little bit. And again, a MacGuffin keeps things moving along. However, most of the scenes with him, they were shooting at night. And bears aren't nocturnal. So they actually got a big, huge pot, essentially, of coffee. And this bear was jacked up on coffee and donuts.
I would not feed a bear caffeine.
Yeah,
coffee and donuts.
Nuts?
Yep, to get the bear up and rolling, this bear was jacked up on coffee and donuts.
That's Cocaine Bear.
Almost made an entirely different movie.
And now don't bleed and don't stare at its eyes.
Don't run.
Yeah.
Nothing to be scared of.
Yeah, don't be afraid.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, I highly recommend. Check out their podcast. I believe it is on Dax Shepard's podcast, Armchair. I think it is Armchair something. Check that out. It just came out like 3 weeks ago. It's a great little conversation that they have about the stuff, and I think it's really interesting to hear 3 different actors come back together and then their experience from the film. So Dax this was my first film. Mm-hmm. I was coming off of Punk'd. They wanted me because they watched me in Punk'd. I didn't have a good audition, so they had me like do improv, and that's how he got the role. But then him talking to the other actors about how like at that point, Seth Green has had like 27 movies or something by that point. That's just outrageous.
Well, what's funny is that Dax is the best actor out of the 3.
By now,
him and what's her name? Kristen, his wife. They're like America's couple now. Mm-hmm. He's not just this goofy guy from Punk'd. He's like a serious icon.
Yeah. It's just interesting being able to listen to people talk about stuff like that, you know, their experience on it, what it felt like to be on your first movie set, how nervous you are to fuck that up. Mm-hmm. Like that's a great thing to listen to. And then to watch the film and have it not be great, but then have them be able to say, yeah, we know this isn't great. Like we knew right away the first time they saw it, they literally like, this is a piece of shit. But you know,
well, that's harsh.
Call the police because there's gonna be a bomb at the box office.
But yeah, final thoughts on it. Then we'll wrap this baby up.
This is a movie that we watched quite a bit when I was in high school. I think this was one that was just in the repertoire.
Yeah, formulaic, easy to consume.
Yeah, this was my first time.
Okay.
Still don't know what anybody said except for DB Cooper.
Uno time.
Actually, 100,000 is 100,000 in Spanish too. So I realized it was 100,000 in cash.
Oh, they didn't change it to pesos?
No.
Okay.
I don't.
Maybe.
I don't know what he said. Just 100,000 something.
Yeah, thanks for the shout out on this one. Thanks for sending this one over because I like this idea of it not just being films that we want to consume. I think going back and looking at stuff is cool, but going back and viewing things that other people remember as well. And I remember thinking this was a mildly decent film. Like,
yeah,
again,
it still is.
It is exactly what I remember it being.
It is mildly decent.
And when I was done with it, I was like, I enjoyed that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, kid?
Yeah, I do.
Have you ever spent 30 years in a cabin?
No.
Well, then you don't know what I mean.
I mean, metaphorically, I know what you mean.
Well, metaphorically, have you ever spent 30 years in a cabin?
No.
Well, then think before you talk.
Okay, so we're going to wrap this baby up, and then we're going to come back next week with a handful more films. I know it's a lot of films, but 2004 is just, it's too many. I would be upset if we didn't talk about Anchorman. I would be upset if we didn't talk about Dodgeball.
Mm-hmm. Harold and Kumar.
Harold and Kumar, I just watched it again, and we got to talk about it. I'm actually mad we didn't talk about it because it fits in so, there's a part of it that fits in so good with last episode that I was so excited to talk about. And it's like, okay, we got to push it off. So that will be coming up next week. If you've got something you want us to talk about, shoot it over right away because there's just enough time to get that in. And then we're on to 2005. So, okay, Buchos, final thoughts on 2004?
It's too much. It's too much. Too much to consume.
And Gabriel Johnson.
Very good movies. Having fun consuming them.
If I don't just switch what you said to some kind of Spanish gibberish.
Oh, yeah. Put some Spanish.
Yo soy el niño.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we will see you next week. And until then, we're done. Are there any other films we want to throw in there? Those are the ones that I are easy for us to consume. We have them.
You know, I don't want to do 10, 15 minutes on it, but I would like to say how much I hate Day After Tomorrow. Or are we going to do a whole episode on that filmmaker?
I think we should, but I think you should at least talk about how shit it is. And now, granted, this is the end of this will be the outro or the bonus content. But yeah, I'm right there with you. I think, yes. And then Scott's absolutely correct. We are going to do a full episode just on him. There's not enough to do a draft on him, but there is enough content to just even go like side by side with some of his stuff would be fantastic.
There's and so not even many. Just comedies, but I mean, Spider-Man 2, iRobot was fun.
We didn't talk about any of the top grossing films.
No. What was it? There's Thunderbirds.
Yep.
Oh, Downfall?
Eurotrip and Club Dread. I love Club Dread.
If we could get our hands on Club Dread, we should do it if we can get our hands on it. But I'm not paying $30 for that damn DVD.
The Incredibles? No.
Yeah. The
2004?
The first Incredibles. That was one of the, and Trek 2 as well.
Oh, Troy was good too.
So there's Troy and Alexander are in the same year, which is crazy. Hollywood's so fucking stupid.
Right. One studio tries to scoop another all the time.
Horror movie at number 3, top grossing. Passion of the Christ.
All right. Well, that's perfect. That's where we're at in this episode.